You ever wonder why China fears India and respects India? Why is it that India has 100 apps that China has that they don't allow in India? India doesn't allow TikTok to be there. America's okay with it. Why is India saying no to China? That's a form of rejection, right? So we went and looked at around 30 different markers comparing China versus India. When you see some of these numbers, you're going to say, no, the edge on this goes to China, the edge on this goes to India. But eventually you're going to see this is the one area where India can come up and maybe, just maybe, beat China. All right, so if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. I'm going to show you data like population, age, teacher, ports, airports. We're going to talk about every single thing, pretty much every single thing between China and India. And some of these numbers are going to shock you on who's got the edge. So let's get right into it. All right, let's start from the top. Population-wise, the difference is only 100,000. India just passed up China. Here's what it looks like. China is at 1.425 billion, 671,000 people, while India is 1.425 776,000, barely having bigger population than China. So the edge there goes to India. Average age of population, China, 38.4 years old. India, 28.7 years old. The edge there goes to India. Life expectancy, male. In China, they live up to 75. In India, they live up to 66. The edge goes to China. Female in China live up to 81. In India, 69. Again, edge goes to China. Net migration rate, when it comes down to China, they're actually negative 0.11%. That means people are leaving. But if you look at India, they're actually positive 0.12%. People are moving to India. Again, the edge there goes to India. Size of land, China, 9.6 million square kilometers. India, 3.3 million square kilometers. China gets the edge there. Cost of living, if US equals 100%, where do China and India measure against that? China would be 57.58%. India is 27.24%. That's terrible. The edge there goes to China. Average income in US dollars, China, $11,880. India, $2,150. Again, the edge goes to China. GDP, watch this one here. I got to give you this one to go to 1950, 1990, then today, because there's a whole story behind this thing. In 1950, China's GDP was 100 billion. India's was 50 billion. China was only twice as big as India. But watch what happens 40 years later in 1990. China is 360 billion. India caught up, 326 billion. They're like this of passing up China, but then something happened. China joined the World Trade Organization. Look what happens next. Today, China, $18 trillion. India, $3 trillion. They went from being pretty much tied to now China is 6 times bigger. The edge goes to China. Roadways, 5.2 million kilometers in China, but 6.4 million kilometers in India. The edge here goes to India. Railroads, China, 96,000 miles of railroads. India, 42,000 miles. Edge goes to China. Airports, China has 214. India only has 82. Edge goes to China. Major ports, this is important because this is import and export. Major ports, China, 34. India, 13. Edge, China. Minor ports, China, 2,000. You ready with India? Only 205. Edge by 10 times goes to China. Let's look at quality of life, because if you're healthy, you can work better, you don't have setbacks, you can go 12 months versus somewhere where you're constantly unhealthy. Out of 100, in China, 69 is the score in quality of life. India, 30. The edge goes to China. Climate, how the weather is. In China, 54. Score. India, 62. Believe it or not, the edge goes to India. Internet users in China, 1,041,000. In India, 613 million. Edge goes to China. But this next part is the one that matters the most. Broadband internet, high internet speed. Look at the difference between China and India. China, 536 million high-speed internet access. India, only 28 million. China's 20 times stronger there. Obviously, the edge goes to China. Healthcare system. Let's look at how many hospital beds per thousand. China, 4.31 beds per thousand. India, 0.53. That's terrible. Again, edge goes to China. Doctors per thousand. China, 1.79. India, 0.78. Edge goes to China. Tuberculosis, 0.55% of people out of 100. In India, 2.1% out of 100. That's 4 times worse. It's a lot of setbacks. Edge goes to China. Education, when it comes down to students per teacher, in China, it's 16-1. In India, 35-1. Again, the edge here goes to China. The next one is to look at how much global money is being invested into their infrastructure as a percentage of their GDP. China, 4.8%. India, 1.1%. Edge goes to China. This next data is insane. This next data is to look at how much cement they use in their country. Ready? China used 7.2 billion tons in 3 years. They used more in 2 years than America used in the entire 20th century. 100 years. That's China. You want to know what India did just in 2022? 355 million tons. This is an area where the edge goes massive to China. Next, main language spoken. In China, 81% of the people speak Mandarin. In India, 57% speak Hindi. Now here's what's crazy about it. China has 300 different languages, but 81% all speak Mandarin, which is good because we can communicate. India only has 120 different languages, but the one main language, only 57% speak. So when I'm doing business with you and I'm communicating, it's kind of tough. Again, edge goes to China. Next, literacy rate. China, 99%. India, 75%. That's a big difference. You know why? Because the more educated your people are, the higher quality jobs they can do to help the infrastructure. If China's 99% and India's 74, 75%, the edge goes to China. But so let me ask you, if you're watching all this and going back and forth, and the edge goes to China and the edge goes to China. Patrick, I'm from India, Patrick. Jamar, screw you. You can't be saying stuff like this. Totally get it. But do you know what we realize? China has the edge in what area? It's only one thing, if you think about it. It's purely infrastructure. Let me explain to you why. All right, so when it comes down to ease of doing business, China has consistently ranked higher than India on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index, indicating a more friendly regulatory environment for businesses. China today is ranked 32. India is ranked 62 according to the World Bank. Infrastructure, China's advanced infrastructure in terms of transport, logistics, and technology is more developed compared to India, which makes business operations smoother for foreign companies. Manufacturing base, China has positioned itself as the world's factory, attracting investment from companies from around the globe seeking to take advantage of its manufacturing capabilities, established supply chain, and relatively low labor costs. Policy environment, China opened to foreign investments earlier and more comprehensively than India, which was more cautious in its approach to liberalization. Just in 2018, Chinese exports were $2.64 trillion versus India only being $500 billion. Therefore, India did not experience fast economic growth, and poverty rate only dropped slightly more than 10% over the last 30 years. So what does all this mean? Here's what it looks like. If you look at poverty rate in China from 1990 till today, China went from 99% poverty rate, that means only 1% in China was doing okay for themselves, to 25%. But during that same period, India only lowered poverty rate by only 10%. Infrastructure. By the way, I want to give you a little bit of credit to India because we have to realize this. If you think about COVID, this is one of the biggest edges India has over China. Think about it. During COVID, what country lost credibility and trust around the world? What's the number one country that lost credibility around the world? It's China. It was so bad that Tim Cook, running Apple, all these iPhones are being made at China. Gradually, he's shifting that over from there to where? To India. Why? It matters that the world trusts India more than they do China. Purely trust. Like, I don't think they're going to do deceptive practices, and China doesn't have the credibility today. But India has to move because this season's not going to last for too long of a time. You have to capitalize on this season. And last but not least, to give credit to India, there's a couple things we do need to give credit to. So I want you to look at this chart from World Economic Forum. Look how it compares China to India. We keep talking about the great infrastructure with China, but China's like, oh, we got this money, build it. Do you want me to build it perfectly? No, just build it. Build the building already. Hurry up. Guys, what's going on? Let's go. We got 3 months. But sir, I'm not building. I'm telling you, build. I got to hit my deadline, right? Versus India's like, no, let's build it properly. So even though they build infrastructure faster, sometimes they build it so fast that not all this stuff works well. They destroy it, rebuild it again, versus India did it right. So the edge, if you look at this chart right here, overall quality of infrastructure, blue, India, yellow, China. Quality roads, India gets the edge. Quality railroads, India gets the edge. Quality port, India gets the edge. Quality air transport, India gets the edge. Quality electricity supply, India gets the edge. Overall infrastructure, India gets the edge. Global competitiveness index, India gets the edge. So you know the whole thing between quality and quantity? Quality, India. Quantity, China. There's an edge. Last 6 points for India to be thinking about. Number 1, figure out a way to increase your skilled workforce. You have to focus on that through education. Number 2, ease of doing business. They can address this. This is purely law and order, regulation. You can deregulate certain areas that's slowing down. It's very, very annoying when regulation is high for business owners. The government controls this. If they want to, they can deregulate many parts of the business. Number 3, infrastructure development. We've already talked about this. They know what areas to focus on. Number 4, investment incentives. India could consider offering tax breaks, subsidies, and other incentives to companies, both domestic and foreign, to say, you know what, I'm willing to move there. Number 5, invest into research and development. The one thing that we have to give credit to India, India has one of the best schools in the world. IIT. It competes with MIT. I've spoken at IIT. Trust me, there's so many different comparisons between those two schools. And a lot of people say IIT is ahead of MIT. So they're investing, they're gradually producing all these engineers. They just got to do a little bit more of it. Political stability and foreign relations. Look, there's some people that hate Modi. There's some people that like Modi. I like Modi. I like the fact that he's been able to do what he's done to India recently. And I like the fact a part of India, you can't push them around. Like, they're not afraid of China. Can you imagine? They're like, yeah, we'll do business with you. 100 apps of yours, not going to be allowed here. You're not going to bully us around. You can bully America. You can bully this guy. You ain't going to bully us. You got to respect a part of what India is doing. But if India can figure out a way to attract more apples, more people to want to start doing business with India and saying, hey, you can trust us. Here's what we're all about. I think it can really start competing with China 10, 20 years later. But we'll see. If you want this whole spreadsheet that we just talked about today, comparing China and India together, text the word India to 310-340-1132. We're going to text you back the PDF, and to print it out and look at it for yourself, again, text the word India to 310-340-1132 or subscribe to the newsletter below. And if you got value from this video, you want to watch another one, especially those of you guys that are Indian that don't like the fact that I give so much love to China, I did a video talking about China's #1 problem. If you've not seen it, click here to watch it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye.